On the eve of the wedding, Julian's childhood friend posted a photo on Facebook wearing my wedding dress. She shyly linked arms with Julian, having Julian's happiness, let me experience it one last time. I commented, how about I call off the wedding? Otherwise, you can only wear that wedding dress for one day. The next second, the Facebook post was deleted instantly. She tearfully threw herself into Julian's arms, you're going to belong to another woman tomorrow, I'm just feeling regretful, how could sister-in-law be angry, boo-hoo. Julian directly changed his Facebook background to a close-up photo of the two of them. He called, she grew up with me, I'm like a brother to her. If you keep acting weird and jealous, then don't marry me. I'm not jealous. I really want to call off the engagement. When Julian came back, I had already finished writing a letter to inform friends and family about canceling the wedding. You wrote this? He casually picked up a letter and flipped through it, smiling nonchalantly. I was about to remove my makeup and responded faintly with a hmm. No wonder it looks so ugly. He chuckled softly. I paused for a moment. Attracted by his heroic figure at the racetrack, when I first wrote him a love letter, he teased me the same way. I was sad for a long time, practiced hard, copying regular script, running script, and slender gold style without missing any, but he just lightly said, it's okay, even if your handwriting is ugly, I still love you. It wasn't until his friends saw my handwritten note and were amazed that he took out a handwritten letter in a rounded font and threw it to them. Have you never seen beautiful handwriting? Later, I found out that the rounded font was Olivia's handwriting. I didn't answer and took off my false eyelashes by myself. He didn't get a response, so he cheekily came closer, scooped me into his arms, and ruffled my hair. All right, no more fussing, I brought you a gift. A Chanel perfume and lipstick gift box was pushed over. I glanced at the shade number, opened the drawer of the dressing table, and took out an identical lipstick that was already chipped. Thank you, but I already have one. Julian was stunned for a moment, then his expression turned sour. This was the gift he gave me on our one-year anniversary. I don't like fuchsia tones, but since it was given by him, I still put it on to meet his friend at that time. Olivia, who had just returned to the country, laughed scornfully upon seeing it. Oh my God. Even my mom wouldn't wear such an old-fashioned lipstick. I didn't know how to respond, and Julian smiled as he pinched her cheek. All right, not everyone looks good no matter what they wear like you do. Olivia giggled and lightly punched his chest. You're so annoying, it's only because you picked a good shade for me. Knowing that Olivia's lipsticks were all chosen by Julian, I argued with him for the first time. This was because not long ago, I saw the new lipstick Olivia posted on Facebook. The caption was, a man must carefully choose a lipstick for a woman, after all, it's going to end up in his own stomach. He rarely lost his temper. I grew up with her. If you really want to have something with her, what does that have to do with you? If you're going to be so pretentious, then just don't date. That argument ended with me crying and begging him not to break up. I also sealed away that lipstick which represented my grievance. But Julian acted as if he remembered nothing and gave me another one exactly the same. He seemed to feel a bit guilty too, stepped forward and hugged me. Sorry, baby, I've been busy lately, took the wrong shade, I'll buy you a new one right away, you can pick any you like. I want to tell you, this time I really want to marry you. I said nothing. This is already the third time we have been preparing for the wedding. The first time, Olivia snatched my diamond ring and put it on during the engagement. I forced her to give it back, but Julian said I couldn't take a joke and cancelled the wedding. The second time, when the priest asked Julian if he was willing, Olivia laughed and answered no prematurely. I scolded her to tears in public, and Julian immediately took off his jacket, saying the wedding was off. He said, whether I get married or not, she is my sister. If my bride would make her suffer, then I would rather be single for life. Julian, third time's the charm. I said calmly. Holding my arm, he stiffened slightly. Julian seemed about to lose his temper again, but when he looked down, he met my cold gaze. In that moment, he was stunned too. Ava, I know you're upset about the wedding dress. He grabbed my shoulder, and his usually careless gaze became serious for once. I'll order you a new one." Saying that, he ignored my protests and picked up his phone to notify the big group that there was a problem with my wedding dress and the wedding was postponed. "Julian, don't be like this." I frowned to stop him, but he had already sent the message. Then he grabbed my outstretched hand and lifted me horizontally. "Come on, let's go pick out a wedding dress with the bride." "Julian, put me down." I struggled wildly, but he smiled and effortlessly carried me downstairs, placing me in the front passenger seat. Just as I was about to escape, I saw a photo of Olivia stuck on the dashboard. She frowned, puffed up one side of her face cutely, pointed in my direction, with a rounded font caption, "This princess's exclusive ride, no trespassers." A hand reached over and tore off the sticker. Olivia thought it was fun and stuck it on casually, "But if you don't like it, I'll tear it off." He really threw the sticker away, but his tone was calm and leisurely, very nonchalant. He has always been like this. He would always deal with Olivia's overstepping behavior in time, but also think it wasn't a big deal. Then when I made a big fuss, he would get impatient. "Is such a small matter really worth it?" "Oh, it's quite cute, you don't have to tear it off." As soon as the words fell, Julian glanced at me, his eyes showing a bit of disbelief. After all, in this situation, I would definitely want him to give an explanation. A light laugh sounded as he held the steering wheel. "I know you're angry, it's okay, your husband will accompany you to pick the most beautiful wedding dress. This time we'll properly get married." "This time? But we can't get married." I said calmly, "Julian, you don't have to do this." He was stunned for a moment, then reached out and rubbed my hair hard. "Don't say silly things." The third wedding, this is the first time Julian has accompanied me to choose a wedding dress. Hearing him actively talk to the clerk about the requirements, I interrupted him. "No wedding dress, I want to inquire about a return." The clerk was stunned, "But this gentleman said you wanted to order." She meant, the size last time didn't fit. Julian hurriedly took over the conversation. I don't know if it was an illusion, but I saw a trace of barely noticeable panic in his actions. He turned to look at me, seemingly eager to confirm something. "Right, wife?" The clerk also looked at me. "Do you want to change the size, ma'am?" Size. I remembered Olivia's Facebook post of her wearing the wedding dress, and looked at the clerk. "Can we discuss the wedding dress separately?" When the clerk and I walked into the room, Julian seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. "Want to customize?" I nodded. The clerk smiled. "It seems this lady wants to give the gentleman a surprise." He smiled and ruffled my hair. "I'll wait for you." I pushed his hand away and closed the door. But when I went out, he wasn't outside the door. When I found him, he was on the phone in the car. Seeing me, he waved me to get in. I had just gotten in the car when Olivia's voice came through. "Why do I hear the sound of a car door opening?" "It's your sister-in-law. I'm here to accompany her to pick out a new wedding dress." There was silence on the other end. "Olivia?" Julian asked. "Julian, my car broke down." I suddenly saw Julian's hand gripping the steering wheel tightly. "Julian, the car suddenly broke down, it's so dark ahead." "I'm so scared." Julian was about to say something, but I spoke first. "Just take me home first." Julian was stunned for a moment. I turned my head. "I won't stop you from going to find her, but you were the one who brought me out, now you should take me home before leaving." "Julian. I'm so scared." Olivia on the other end of the phone seemed to start crying. I directly took the phone. "Olivia, even if the car breaks down, you can still turn on the lights. It only takes a few minutes from here to my house, you won't have to wait long with the lights on." "Ava." Julian snatched the phone back, looking at me in disbelief. "You don't know Olivia is afraid of the dark. What do you mean by letting her wait there alone while I take you home? Didn't I buy you a new wedding dress? Why are you jealous in a situation like this?" I wasn't jealous. I was calm and unhurried. "There are no taxis here, no street lights, and it's very inconvenient for me to go back alone. Just 2 months ago, there was a knife robbery here." "Julian." Over there, it immediately turned into crying and shouting. "I'm scared." Julian was breathing unevenly, flung open the car door on my side, and with a bang, unbuckled my seatbelt. You're getting more and more unreasonable now. Get out and calm down by yourself. The car sped away right in front of me. When we left, he didn't give me a chance to change clothes, and now I only have a coat to keep warm. The biting winter wind made me shiver uncontrollably. In the end, it was my best friend who drove all the way to this dark alley without streetlights to pick me up. Wasn't there a murder here not long ago? And he just left you here? My best friend was angrily cursing while driving. I kept telling her not to get upset. While wrapped in the blanket she brought me, I sneezed. I opened my phone. Olivia's Facebook was updated. She was also wrapped in a Hello Kitty blanket, leaning against Julian, who seemed to be asleep, her almond-shaped eyes lively like a little deer. Thank you, my hero, you are always the one standing behind me whenever I look back. I showed my Facebook to my best friend Linda. Look, her blanket isn't as pretty as yours. Linda was momentarily stunned. I had broken down over Julian so many times, she thought this time she would stay up all night comforting me, but I took the initiative to tease her. She was stunned for a moment, then sneered, "Of course, don't you see whose it is?" I was having a late-night snack when Julian came back. Seeing only one serving of tomato scrambled egg noodles, he was stunned. "Didn't you make any for me?" I finished the last bite. "If you're hungry, find something to eat yourself." After saying that, I cleared my own dishes and brushed past him. He couldn't hide his shock. No matter how heated our arguments were in the past, I would always save some food for him. Especially since he came home after this fight. He stood there, looking displeased at me. I knew he was waiting for me to comfort him. But I cleared the dishes and walked to the bedroom without even glancing at him. "Can you please stop making a fuss?" He grabbed my wrist. "Olivia has been afraid of the dark since she was little. If I'm late, she'll break down. Aren't you just upset because I left you alone on the road? It's not that far from home, and besides, who can mess with you at 175 centimeters tall? Olivia, a little girl, obviously needs my help more. She and I grew up together. What's wrong with you helping her?" I finished saying the rest of his words. Julian was choked up. I ignored him, went into the bedroom, pulled back the covers, and lay down. Closing my eyes, sleepiness came in waves after a short while. Half asleep, half awake, someone pressed against me from behind. "Don't move." I grabbed Julian's hand on my waist. "I don't want to." The person behind stiffened, then hugged me tighter. "Ava, it's been a long time." "I really don't want to." I interrupted him. "Ava." He sat up straight. "You were the one who always begged me to touch you. We're about to get married, and now you suddenly act so reserved." I pinched the bridge of my nose. "Julian, I'm too tired, please stop making a fuss." At that moment, the person behind me seemed to freeze. Because this was the excuse he had used countless times to reject me. The room fell into an eerie silence. I turned around. "Do you have anything else to say?" "You." I quietly waited for him to continue. Calm, composed, even indifferent. That was all in the past, things only he would do. When I was too exhausted to touch him after he helped Olivia handle various trivial matters, and I threw a big tantrum, rolling on the ground, he was the one who looked at me coldly. When I ran out of energy to continue making a fuss, he would calmly ask, "Had enough? Anything else? If not, go to sleep." Every time he would sleep soundly, leaving me alone to cry until dawn. Then, the next day, seeing my red-rimmed eyes, he would smile half-heartedly and pat my head. "Is it really worth it over such a small thing?" It turns out that handling problems his way makes everything so simple. "Ava." Julian took a deep breath, his voice trembling slightly. "Who did you learn that way of throwing a tantrum from?" If I had to say, it could only be him. But that was never my intention. I wasn't throwing a tantrum, I was truly exhausted. The person who always had me under his control couldn't even speak at this moment. Nodding slightly, he smiled sarcastically. "Do as you please, I'm going to find Olivia." After saying that, he really got up, dressed, and strode out, slamming the door loudly behind him. I yawned and fell asleep until dawn. Julian hasn't come home. For half a month straight, he hasn't contacted me. But I also didn't, like before, beg his friends to help me find him. One reason is that I really don't want to look for him. Another is that his Facebook started updating. That Facebook, which used to have only one post, began daily updates. Today he had a candlelight dinner with Olivia, tomorrow he's going to a concert with Olivia, and the day after tomorrow he's going to an exhibition with Olivia. Sometimes, he updates several posts in one day. Every post is related to Olivia. Seeing how diligently he manages his Facebook, I couldn't help but like his latest post. But strangely, after that, he never posted any more photos of outings with Olivia. What, does he think my likes bring bad luck? He might as well just block me. I didn't pay much attention to this little incident and spent every day hanging out with Linda and our girlfriends. During the 6 years with Julian, every move I made and every emotion I felt was related to him. It had been a long time since I relived my youth with Linda. At a dinner with 3 or 5 old friends, I ran into Julian in the corridor outside the next private room. When he saw me, his originally irritated eyes brightened. "Ava?" He grabbed my hand. "I knew you wouldn't forget my birthday." I was stunned for a moment. "Your birthday?" He grabbed my hand and said sharply, "You forgot?" I didn't say anything. He squeezed my hand tightly, his tone a bit annoyed. "I posted it on Facebook." I belatedly opened my phone. After I liked my last post, he really had posted a Facebook post of friends celebrating his birthday. "Sorry, I forgot." The hand holding mine trembled slightly, and for a moment, Julian's eyes seemed a bit red. "You never used to forget before." The past, memories flooded my mind, and I nodded, "Oh. It's Sister Ava." Olivia's voice sounded as she poked her head out of the private room, holding a Hello Kitty cheering stick in her hand, smiling lively and cute. "Are you here to freeload a meal?" Julian's friends followed closely behind. "Sister-in-law. Sister-in-law is here." "I told you, there's no way she wouldn't show up at Julian's birthday, ha ha ha." Julian rarely grandly introduced me in social occasions where both Olivia and I were present. He doesn't often take me to meet friends, these people are all from Julian and Olivia's social circle. But this time, he pulled me along to toast each of those friends one by one, and everyone said meaningfully, "How did Julian become a henpecked husband?" Faced with this insulting nickname, he rarely smiled and agreed. What surprised me even more was that the private room screen had prepared all the beautiful memories of him and me, from the time we met to our engagement and up to now. Watching the photos scroll by one after another, I forced a smile. If this video had been shown half a month earlier, I probably would have been moved to tears. Throughout the whole process, Julian held my hand tightly. Then, when the video ended and some people started to tear up, the knife for cutting the cake was handed to me. The atmosphere was wonderful, and everyone cheered. "Sister-in-law, cut the cake." I gently put the knife down. "Sorry, I'm not here to attend this gathering." Julian was stunned for a moment. I looked at him. "Today, I came because we've known each other for 6 years, and I wanted to wish you a happy birthday. I have another event next door, you guys continue." After saying that, I really left without looking back. "Ava." A hand tightly grabbed my wrist, almost using all its strength, squeezing until it hurt a little. Julian's eyes were slightly red. "Are you really going to leave just like that?" After a moment of silence, he suddenly laughed out loud. Turning back, casually, "What, can't you celebrate your birthday without me?" I used to be the most enthusiastic person about celebrating Julian's birthday. The first time we decided to get married, it was actually my idea. At that time, we had been in love for 5 years, and I had bought the engagement ring myself. I never thought that proposing had to be done by the man. A woman can also bravely take this step instead of always waiting for the other person to make a move. I invited mutual friends from both sides to wait for him to come home on his birthday to give him a surprise. However, the whole birthday passed, and I never got to see him arrive. When I called, the sea breeze was blowing on the other end, and Olivia was occasionally shouting excitedly. His voice sounded a bit tired. "I'm watching the sea with Olivia, is there something wrong?" Everyone's eyes were unreservedly fixed on me. I felt like there were needles in my back, my eyes burning, clenching my fists to keep the tears from falling. Julian, I prepared a birthday gift for you. He was stunned for a moment, then smiled casually. Oh, I would have forgotten if you hadn't mentioned it. Olivia hasn't finished playing yet, let's talk about it when we get home. Julian. My tears fell to the ground with this uncontrollable shout. Shouldn't you be with me on your birthday? All our friends are watching. Silence on the other side for a moment. Then he spoke again, his voice turning cold. Did I ask you to prepare a birthday surprise for me? I was stunned for a moment. He continued, Ava, I am just your boyfriend, not something sold to you. I don't have to tell you everything, including what I do on my birthday. It's my birthday. Whether I celebrate it or not, how I celebrate it, and with whom, has nothing to do with you. Who told you to presumptuously arrange things for me? The dial tone sounded from the receiver after the call was hung up. That night, I became a joke among the mutual friends of two people. Now, looking at this anxious man in front of me, I smiled softly. It's your birthday. Whether you celebrate it or not, how you celebrate it, and with whom, what does it have to do with me? Who asked you to presumptuously prepare so much drama for me? Everyone was silent. Only Olivia smashed her wine glass, rushed forward, and stood in front of Julian. Julian, if you don't want to wish him a happy birthday, then don't spoil the mood. There are so many people here, and we don't need you. Don't think that just because you're the brother's girlfriend, you can act recklessly. Compared to Julian, Olivia. Julian suddenly shouted. The little princess, who had always been pampered and cherished by him, was stunned. Julian's voice became weary. Stop talking. It seemed he was recalling past events. I didn't say more and turned to leave the private room. While the next room was lively, my phone kept vibrating. It was a message from Julian. It's getting colder again today. Did you bring warm clothes? I didn't reply. After a while, he sent another message. Don't drink too much, you have a low tolerance. If someone pressures you to drink, call me over. Annoyed, I turned off the notifications directly. After our friends' gathering ended, sitting in the car on the way back, I realized he had sent several more messages. He asked me when I would be back. He was already waiting for me outside. I took a photo of the scenery outside the car. I'm going back, don't worry. He replied almost instantly, okay, send me a message when you arrive, I might get home a bit late. I knew he was taking Olivia home. This was his usual routine. I didn't reply, just closed my eyes to rest. I didn't question him like before about why he was late coming back. Playing games with my best friend at the hotel until midnight, my phone rang. I reluctantly answered. You haven't come back? It was Julian. I said, playing outside with Linda, is there something wrong? After a moment of silence, the other side spoke again in a low voice. Are you unwilling to come home now? The game was interrupted. I frowned. I'm just out playing with Linda. Is it fun for you to ask all these questions? The other side fell silent. I belatedly realized that the impatient character just now originally belonged to Julian. He was always the one who stayed out all night, and I was often the one questioning why he didn't come home. Ava. Julian took a deep breath. When will you come back? I'll pick you up. No need. Well, it's getting colder, did you bring clothes? I felt that he was unusually talkative today. Didn't I also not freeze to death the day you left me by the car? The voice on the other end trembled slightly. I sighed. I have something to do, I'll hang up first. After saying that, I really hung up the phone. And that night, he never contacted me again. But the next day after saying goodbye to Linda, I found his Porsche parked downstairs. I asked your friend and heard that you were here. Julian was standing in front of the car waiting for me. I was a bit stunned. It was always him who would disappear without a trace, and I would go around asking his friends about his whereabouts. This was probably the first time he was asking my friends about where I was. After playing all night, I really wanted to go back and catch up on some sleep. Thank you. I ignored the hand he reached out, brushed past his shoulder, and opened the back door to get in. He turned around, surprised to see me sitting in the back seat, a frown creeping onto his brow. On the way home, I could feel his gaze cast through the rearview mirror. His slightly furrowed brows expressed his dissatisfaction. I looked down at my phone, not raising my eyes, nor did I, like before, take the initiative to ask why he was unhappy. "The bridal shop said your wedding dress is still being made." He suddenly spoke. I was stunned. His expression was somewhat disdainful. "You're not really serious about breaking off the engagement. Control your temper, or be careful, you might really ruin this wedding." I suddenly woke up as if from a dream. "Oh, right, the clerk told me this morning that I could pick it up, so I took it home." He was stunned for a moment. But he still turned around and went to the bridal shop. "The wedding dress was made according to this lady's requirements. You will definitely look beautiful wearing it." The clerk handed me the dress with a beaming smile and enthusiastically arranged a fitting room for me. "No need, I'll try it on at home." Hearing me say this, the clerk smiled with pursed lips. "I know, you want to give your husband a surprise. What's the problem? Try it on and come back to us, we offer free alterations." Julian curled his lips. "Thanks." Saying that, he helped me take the wedding dress, his gaze towards me now tinged with some disdain and understanding. Having been with him for 6 years, I knew what he meant. I had been throwing little tantrums for so long, but in the end, I still arranged the wedding dress. After all, it was just a fuss to get attention. But the moment he opened the door, a familiar figure suddenly threw herself into his arms. "Brother Julian." "Olivia?" For the first time, Julian was stunned by the sudden appearance of his childhood friend at home. In his plan, today was probably meant to be just for me and him. I was the one who called her over. I explained calmly, took Olivia by the arm, and led her into the bedroom. "Wait outside for a moment." After a short while, the bedroom door opened, and Olivia was wearing a gorgeous, perfectly fitting wedding dress, indescribably beautiful. Julian immediately stood up from the sofa. Olivia's face was a little red as she showed off the wedding dress from side to side, looking shyly at Julian. "Brother, does it look good?" But Julian walked straight over to me. "What's going on?" I smiled gently and helped Olivia adjust the decoration on the front of the dress. The previous wedding dress was made to my measurements, so it didn't fit well. This one was custom made for her. "See, isn't it much better?" Julian's eyes were filled with indescribable shock. But I smiled leisurely. "There is no outfit more suitable for her than this one, so let her marry you like this, trust my judgment." "Ava." Julian's voice began to tremble, even his hand shook slightly as he raised it to grab my arm. "You must be joking with me." I blinked. "HM? Not at all." Saying this, I took Olivia's hand and placed it in his. I stood between the two of them, like the witness to this happiness, and smiled gently. "The two of you have been together for over 20 years, it's time to bear fruit. Wishing you both a long and lasting happiness." Olivia shyly looked up at Julian, but he abruptly shook off her hand. "Ava." "Brother Julian." Olivia looked at Julian in disbelief, but he didn't pay any attention to her at all. He pressed both hands on my shoulders, his peach blossom eyes slightly reddened, the force of his hands hurting me, but his voice trembled even more. "Don't do this. Don't make this kind of joke. It's not funny at all, not at all." I looked at him, grabbed his hand, gradually exerted force, and pushed him away. His two hands froze in midair, staring at me in astonishment. "Julian, since when did you become so unable to take a joke?" He was completely stunned. It seemed he finally remembered. "The first engagement, Olivia snatched my ring and put it on. The second wedding," Olivia laughed and answered for Julian that he was unwilling. "When I was angry, his reason for blaming me was always, 'Olivia was just joking, she meant no harm.' Why are you so unable to take a joke? You have to make everyone unhappy just so you can be happy, right?" Julian smiled bitterly, slowly withdrew his hand, and the once confident and spirited him now looked like a withered, broken leaf. Gritting his teeth, he still raised his head. "Ava, stop making a fuss, let's seriously get married. I won't joke with you anymore, okay? Too late. My tone was indifferent, as if this matter held no weight for me at all. But he was very excited. Not too late. Ava. As long as you're willing, we can start over. We. His words suddenly stopped. He suddenly noticed some changes at home. Where are those notices? Julian's expression turned serious as he kept searching through the drawer where I stored the documents. I turned around and pulled out the suitcase I had packed long ago. Stop looking. I already sent them to all our relatives and friends the day before yesterday. He turned his head in disbelief. When he saw the suitcase I had packed, his pupils suddenly contracted. Where are you going? Jiangnan needs a director, and I have already booked the plane ticket. He couldn't believe it. Ava, you lied to me. I shook my head. I have no reason to lie to you. Standing in the house we once planned to use as our marital home, I looked at him calmly and said, haven't you noticed that there are no longer any of my things here? He was stunned for a moment. Only then did he realize that the dressing table, which used to be piled with things, was now completely empty. But the lipstick he gave me was still lying neatly in the drawer. Julian, take good care of yourself in the days to come. Leaving this heartfelt blessing, I opened the door and walked out. Suddenly, a heart-wrenching shout came from behind. Ava. Then came Olivia's crying and shouting, Brother Julian, don't go. If she leaves, I can keep you company. We are the ones who grew up together since childhood. Get lost. Get lost. It seemed that there were sounds of smashing and breaking from upstairs, along with a woman's crying. I thought I must have heard wrong. After all, it was quite far away, so it was normal to mishear. How could Julian bear to see Olivia sad? I got into a taxi and left the city. Wancheng recently held a car race. When that spirited and handsome racer sped ahead with a brilliant dash, the whole crowd of girls screamed wildly. When he took off his helmet, I was stunned as I was waving a small flag with Linda. It was Julian. The host asked him what he wanted to do most at this moment. He took out a ring and showed it to everyone. I hope my beloved girl can marry me. The crowd of fans cheered. Only I looked at the ring on the big screen and couldn't help but smile bitterly. It was a ring exactly the same as the one I bought back then. I hid it in the cake, wanting to give him a surprise. But at that time, he was with his childhood sweetheart watching the sea. We really were a perfect match, even our tastes were the same. When his finger pointed towards my seat, the lights also shone directly on my seat. The camera zoomed in, and there were only 2 empty seats left there. Julian's smile froze on his face. The hand holding the ring slowly lowered. On the way back, a car made a beautiful U-turn and blocked my path. Julian got out of the car, his peach blossom eyes slightly red. Ava. I took a step back and smiled politely. Mr. Julian. Hearing this unfamiliar title, his hand uncontrollably clenched. Are you not believing me? He walked towards me step by step. Still looking just like the one I fell in love with at first sight 6 years ago. Time has not been harsh to him. But that feeling of being moved can never be found again. What don't you believe? I don't understand. He grabbed my hand, the notorious troublemaker in the circle now like a pitiful little dog no one wants. Ava, after you blocked me, I've always wanted to tell you. Olivia and I are innocent. I have never. I know. I smiled gently. I've always known. Julian is not someone who acts recklessly. He was stunned. Then you. I pushed his hand away. Lightly, but firmly. Mr. Julian, cheating is not just about sleeping in the same bed. His breath trembled, he opened his mouth, struggling to speak. Sorry, Ava. I actually didn't mean to. I have been serious about you from the very beginning, I really. He choked up, the notorious wild king in the circle was actually in tears. I spoke softly, with a smile. I know, you feel like you haven't wronged me, and you once truly liked me. After all, someone as wild as you wouldn't agree to marry if you didn't really like me. I paused, my smile deepening, my tone gentle, but being together isn't just about you feeling like you've done right. His eyes reddened. Julian, our fate has come to an end. I'm doing well now, no resentment or hatred. The head office is sending me overseas to take over as the top leader. This meeting might be the last. He suddenly looked up, incredulous. Finally, let me remind you a few more things. I might have been able to tolerate your behavior in the past, but other girls might not. Treat the next her well, and don't let her be as disappointed as I once was. I don't have the energy to find the next her. Julian's voice was slightly hoarse. I just smiled, then let's wait slowly. After saying that, I wiped his shoulder and walked away. Suddenly on a whim, I looked back once. He stood at the other end of the alley, his figure towering under the light. Although it was a warm tone, it outlined endless loneliness and sorrow in him. I turned my head, feeling neither sadness nor joy. During the years working overseas, a driver from China fought his way to the international racing scene. I would occasionally go watch the races and often saw his face. Rumor has it in the circle that this racer competes in every race and fights for first place every time, all to get someone's attention. His fangirls vehemently deny this. I remain neutral on this. Olivia seems to have been following him everywhere, but he has never once looked at her directly. This has led many of his fangirls to accuse Olivia of being a delusional girl. The reporter asked him if it was true, as the rumors said, that he was waiting for someone. He agreed, yes. So what do you plan to do? He paused. I will spend my whole life waiting for her. Linda, who saw the news report, asked me what I planned to do. I was playing a game with her side by side, glanced at the news, and said indifferently, let him be.